Finding life a bit complex? Confusing? Aware that your old strategies aren't working? Why not ask Pam and Marilyn? This is the Irreverent Therapists, and we're here to add some clarity, humor, and a bit of what might be considered blasphemy to your day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Irreverent Therapists. I'm Pam Hodween, and with me is Marilyn Bradford.
Yippee!
And today we are talking about, is divorce a dirty word in your universe? What does divorce mean to you? Failure, shame, defeat? Have you decided that if you had a divorce or get a divorce, that it reflects badly on you? That somehow you were or are not capable of having a good, lasting relationship? What if divorce was something to celebrate? What if it was a doorway to possibilities you've never believed possible? Join us for a very different take on this life-changing event. Well, Marilyn, I feel like I'm something of an expert on this.
Me too. I've had two of them.
So divorce is, we should have checked on the divorce rate, but I think it's pretty high these days.
I think it's 50, at least in America, I think it's 50% of all marriages.
Yeah. And so to me, there's so many places we could go with this just right off the bat. Is there anything particular you had in mind that you were hoping we'd start with?
Well, I do want to talk about divorce because that's what the topic is. And I also was looking at expanding it, anything that we've, quote, committed ourselves to and have decided is going to last a long time, and then everything in the universe is telling you this needs to end.
Yeah.
And then all of the judgments that we have around that. Because I think divorce, like as in the end of a marriage, is a great topic. And I think it can signify a lot of other things for people.
Well, yeah, because it could be, if you start a business and you have that business going for many years and then, maybe the economy turns or something and the thing has to fold or,
yes.
Thank you for bringing that up because I could see how, there's all kinds of things that we put years of time and energy into.
Right.
And then it's like, how do we handle it when the time has come for it to end? You could even think of raising a kid that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay. So, I think that's a very good point. Now, the thing that I think of with all this, like what first comes to my mind is expectation. 'Cause I had a friend who is very religious. She's a conservative Christian. And when she got married for religious reasons and just how she was in the world, to her, that was a lifetime commitment. And she had every expectation of that being, this is what we're doing. And it was also a very kind of what I'd call a traditional marriage in that the husband was the one who had the job and financially supported everybody. And my friend was the one who tended to the home and, the kids and all that kind of stuff. And, things started, probably 15 years, maybe 20 years into their marriage, where they still had kids at home. Things started not going so well. And, the husband left. And I just remember her talking about kind of how could he, the expectation of, you made a commitment to me, this has to be forever. Yes. Kind of regardless of what was going on that got them to that point, the betrayal she felt because to her this was forever. I just remember, there's so much about the expectations you have. And I think partly because it was so different than how I functioned in relationship. Thank goodness.
Well, and it's expectations, but it's also, it's not just our expectations of the marriage. There seems to be within that a lot of judgment of the other person.
Yes. Oh, I should say expectations always involve judgment.
Yes. And in this case, it's you didn't behave right.
Yeah.
Which is one thing that will kill anything.
Yeah.
You know, of course, we look at things a little bit differently. But
well, first we'll talk about how most people look at things.
Exactly.
Because it, like, whatever it is that's your idea of marriage and why you're getting married and what it means to get married, that's the points of view you have. And it's like you're, okay, here, I have a wonderful image, Marilyn.
Okay. I'm ready.
It's like the difference between being an artist and, just grabbing whatever paint or media you want and creating your artwork. It's like that compared to paint by numbers. Like all the points of view you have about what your relationship is and what marriage is and, how you're supposed to be and how they're supposed to be. All of that is like all the outline is all filled in. And you just have a little bit of wiggle room within that of who you can be and how you can be with each other. Whereas, a different possibility would be coming at relationship without all those judgments and points of view and expectations. Then it's two of you creating together.
Yeah. And it's also the difference between being present with someone and basically, you were saying the paint by numbers, which is a good analogy, and also something like here is the structure and you just fit yourself into these roles. Mm-hmm. Don't ever think again. Don't relate to the person in front of you. Relate to their role by your role.
Yes.
Boy, we're off on marriage, aren't we?
Well, it's like, so I'm going to just say Marilyn and I are both Access Consciousness facilitators, and Gary Douglas, the founder of Access, he says, I'm not against relationship. I'm against bad relationship.
Exactly.
So I'm not against marriage, but so often the way it's done is a limitation of the people involved, not a way of constantly expanding the people involved.
How about a limitation, not a celebration?
Yes. I like that. That could be a little catchphrase.
Yeah. I like it too. I'm kind of jazzing over here. Not a limitation, it's a celebration. Woo, woo, woo. Never mind.
And if you're done celebrating, I wanted to point out.
Yeah, I am done. All right, that's it. No more celebrating.
No more celebrating. Get serious, Marilyn. Divorce is a serious topic. So as you can see, we are the Irreverent Therapists. We do not take anything seriously. Death, divorce, none of it. And now I've forgotten what I was going to say, Marilyn. It was brilliant.
I'm sure it was.
I remember. That, when we're talking about coming in with judgments and expectations and points of view, it's not just what you might consider the, quote, negative stuff. It's like, I used to be someone who talked about soulmates, and my husband was my soulmate. And it's like...
How limiting is that?
What's that?
How limiting is that?
Well, that's mighty limiting. That is incredibly limiting. But it's like, all of that, this is the one, this is the... it's funny because we still, we're separated. We still talk about, people ask us about how we met and stuff like that. And the story of the ways in which we were a good fit and meant for each other and that kind of thing. It's like all of that goes into, defining those lines of how your relationship has to be.
Yes, absolutely. And I think I'd also like to talk, sort of shift us over more to divorce about, and it's not exactly reasons for divorce.
Oh, you mean we should talk about divorce since that's our topic?
I think we might do that.
Okay.
But I was looking at how both of my divorces were from an awareness that things weren't working, not from recriminations and trauma drama and you cheated on me and how could you and all that kind of stuff. And I just realized right this second that that's fairly unusual.
Yeah, that is. I mean, just that is unusual. And I was going to say I can top that, but I'll wait and top that when we come back from our break.
All right, you can top it. I don't mind.
But yeah, so often people are, splitting up from there's the wrongness, and there's something wrong, and we're not getting along, and we hate each other's guts and that kind of thing. And what you're describing of just the awareness that it doesn't work is totally different.
Yeah, absolutely. So in my first marriage, I got married, and it was I didn't get married, I can't remember exactly, but I think I was 30.
Okay,
but around that
say you have 4 seconds.
Pardon?
You have 4 seconds.
All right, never mind.
Hold that thought.
Hold that thought.
This is the Irreverent Therapist. We're talking about, is divorce a dirty word in your universe? And we will be back in just a moment.
Bringing you the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio, your conscious lifestyle on steroids.
The truth is, you can't change the world if you're broke. I know, I've tried. Isn't it time you turned your life's calling into a profitable, freedom-based business? I'm Michelle Barr. Join me every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern for Sacred Success.
Being a radio host on IOM-FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. What if business could be fun? What if business is the adventure of living? What are you choosing? Where do you do business that makes it easier, more fun, or more joyful for you? We'd love to see where you do business. Connect with us on Instagram at Joy of Business or Twitter at Joy of Business, and share your pictures with hashtags BusinessDoneWhere and Joy of Business. Let's change the world with business.
Five Nation Radio is brought to you by Carrie Turcott and Dean Thomas. Each week, we bring a refreshing outlook to lifting the veils of illusion that occur in our daily lives. We will share our own learnings and personal experience that allow others to understand who they truly are.
At the end of each show, Carrie will be tapping into the listeners' energies just to give an idea of what to expect for the week ahead. So join us each Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern, and together we will discover the inner keys that will unlock the true you.
The future of internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio, IOM-FM.
And welcome back to the Irreverent Therapist, where we are talking about, is divorce a dirty word in your universe? And Marilyn, you were right in the middle of telling us a little bit about one of your divorces.
Right, being unaware of the time. But so my first divorce, my first marriage was really something that I did to fit into this reality.
Mm-hmm.
I married a man who seemed nice, who was going to earn most of the money and blah, 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 blah. The difficulty was, as he said to me at the end, he said, I know I never really considered you, but don't you want to give it another try? Like, no, I don't think so. I didn't really exist to him.
Right.
You know,
right.
I was there to support him and make his dinner and all of that. And it was like I began to cease to exist. And that's when I was like, you know what? This doesn't work for me. But it wasn't acrimonious. Now, he was very upset. And I'm not surprised in a way. If you put someone in a role and they're supposed to be there and support you, and that's what they're supposed to do their whole life, and all of a sudden they go, you know what? I think I'm going to have a life. It's rather disruptive.
Right.
And in my second divorce, we both looked at it. It was totally not acrimonious. In fact, we became better friends afterwards than we were in the marriage. And essentially what had happened, or what we created, was that he was a single man looking for a relationship. I was a single woman looking for a relationship, and we liked each other.
Yeah.
But what we didn't have was that romantic aspect.
Okay.
And we kept trying to make it work that way. Oh, we're husband and wife, and and it just didn't work.
Yeah.
It just didn't work. So, and we both really came to the awareness about the same time. And there was like 20 minutes of blah, 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 and then it was like, oh, let's forget that. But for whatever reason, I never looked at divorce as a failure. And as a psychotherapist, I can't tell you how many clients I've had who that's their reason for coming to therapy. Sorry, there's a train noise out there. I can't do anything about it.
Oh, because they feel like a failure because their marriage is not.
Yeah, they feel like a failure because they didn't make their marriage work. And they never look at whether or not it was workable.
Right.
Or, this is another point I'd like to make, is that, well, and you sort of made it in the beginning, it's like if you had the expectation this should last forever, then you're going to have to look at yourself as a failure. But most relationships of any kind don't last forever. They run their course.
Yeah.
We accept it in friendships. Well, we come and go, and this worked in high school, but we're both moved away, and we really don't have anything in common. But we don't accept in romantic, say, relationships that they all have a sort of an expiration date. And just because your expiration date is 10 years instead of 60 does not mean you're a failure.
Or even if it's 50 years instead of 60.
Yes, exactly.
Well, it's interesting because, what I think about for me and my relationship with my husband, and now we've been separated for 3 years. It's like, I grew up with the expectation that I would find that someone who, I didn't have these words for them, but I was a contribution to him. He was a contribution to me. We'd share our life. It wasn't until my niece was born that I got interested in babies, but it was kind of this, you'll hear people talk about, if I say, go out and notice blue cars today, you'll suddenly start noticing all the blue cars.
Right.
And because you're looking for it. And so the same way, if I have that point of view that what you do, a successful life or me evolving into who I am or, whatever it is involves, having a healthy relationship with a partner, then that's what you're looking for. And what's really interesting is, Marilyn, you were talking about, when you and your husbands decided to divorce, there wasn't it was just not working, right? It wasn't that there was all this fighting and stuff like that. I mean, what I'd say for me and my ex is not only, it actually was working. I mean, we had a great relationship. We had a great marriage. We could have easily just kept doing that for the rest of our lives, but we were both people who were constantly looking at, clearing things, clearing points of view, all this kind of stuff. And I mean, literally what happened was I came home from an access class and I said, hey, for the first time, I asked, if I stay married to you, what will my life be like in 5 years? And if I don't, what will my life be like in 5 years? And for the first time, it was light to not be married. And we had a 5-minute conversation where we both looked at it and we were like, yeah, we're just kind of doing this because this is what, because we got married and we don't have to anymore. And it was just to me, it was a transition. It was, we've been having, our relationship has been one thing. Now it's going to be something else. Now we're co-parenting our kids, but we aren't in a marriage relationship. Right. But there's something about, we had both so cleared all the points of view about what it meant to be married. For years we had known we're together because every day we choose it.
Right.
Not because we got married. And then, so it was very easy to just not choose it again.
That's very cool. Who would think of actually choosing every day whether or not you're going to be married?
Yeah. And, so from that, I mean, you can see as I'm talking about, it's very flexible, right? It's like, let's be married. Let's not be married.
Yeah.
So to me, us choosing to not be married anymore, if I was choosing to look at it in terms of successful relationship, not to me, it's a hugely successful relationship.
Yes, absolutely. It just depends how you define success.
Yeah.
It's success because you're being present, you're being aware, and you're choosing what's actually true for you rather than putting a structure ahead of everything.
Right. Yeah. And being willing to, I don't know, being willing to choose what's going to create greater, even if it doesn't look like what you expected.
Yes, exactly. And being willing to be present and alive. I mean, I see so many people in marriages, it's like they're dead.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a little extreme, but it does have that energy of automatic pilot, rote. And I'm not saying there are not some happy marriages out there, because I know there are. But it's whether the people actually come first or the structure comes first, and all of the judgment and points of view. My point of view is, if you see divorce as a failure and you're married, then you can't actually be present with what is. And you can't actually, you have no choice.
Right. And, or if you do, if it's like, things have to go so wrong before you can even give yourself the choice of divorcing. Yes. And then you're in judgment of you and you're in judgment of them. And it's this,
it's
this
judgmental
thing. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because when you were talking about that, what it made me realize is, for us, we were kind of at the point where we'd had little kids. They kind of, like when they're really little, it's just like a marathon run. It's like, can we get enough sleep and all this kind of stuff? And they'd gotten old enough that we were just we'd been looking at things and going, okay, what can we do to really beef up our relationship? Because we'd been so focused on the kids and, what are we looking for in each other and that kind of thing. And, so we were having those kinds of conversations of how to bring more life into our relationship.
Oh, that's cool.
And it just hadn't occurred to us that one way of doing that was to not be married anymore. But that's really, the energy of it was, okay, I'm at a buffet. What do I feel like eating today? It was, everything's on the table of what we could choose here and what do we choose?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, so to me, when I think about everyone judging themselves for divorce or judging everybody else who gets divorced.
I hadn't looked at that one.
Well, yeah, because for us, people were shocked. I mean, we were the marriage that everybody's like, oh my gosh, they have such a great marriage. And for us to turn around and go, oh, now we're not going to be married anymore. They were like, what's wrong? And we talked about that and that, we had a 5-minute conversation to choose to separate. And then the rest of it was, how are we going to handle this with people? And we actually said, it was like, okay, people are going to want a reason and we don't have a reason, at least not when they can understand.
Right.
And if we try to give them an answer, we'll create a problem that doesn't exist.
Right.
Because people are looking for what's the problem that made you get divorced. And so we very intentionally didn't talk about it that way. And we still flip people out because we'll show up at, it's like there's our favorite restaurant that we all go to as a family. And something one of the waitresses said recently, I was like, oh, actually, she said, oh, your husband was in here earlier getting takeout. And I was like, oh, we're actually not married anymore. We've been separated for 3 years. But we come in there with the kids quite frequently. And, so we do stuff like that with it. People really don't get us. But that's possible because there isn't all the points of view about what we should have been married and how wrong it is that we're divorced and that one of us has to be wrong or both of us have to be wrong and we have to hate each other. And, if that's not there, even from separated or divorced, you're still continuing to create. So
that people, and I know we're coming up on another break, but that people said, well, but you had such a good marriage, as if having a great marriage doesn't mean you're going to get a divorce.
Right. Well,
it's just a legal thing. Well, it is more than that. We should probably talk about that after.
Right. Well, no, but I think that's a really good point, Marilyn, that the expectation is if it's a good marriage, you would never get divorced.
Yes, exactly.
And that the only reason you would get divorced is if it's a bad marriage.
Right.
And, so no wonder people feel like failures when they get divorced.
Exactly.
The whole society is built that way. Yeah. But what if it doesn't have to be that way?
Yeah. What if it could be very different?
So we will be talking more about how divorce could be different when we get back. We're the Irreverent Therapists.
The best of holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
Dr. Kevin here, and I want to invite you every Thursday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, to join me on the Dr. Kevin Show, where we have a diversity of guests who help you step outside the box, behind the curtain, and see what a load of crap is going on in the world today, so you have more information with which to make better decisions. We'll see you there. Namaste.
Host your show on IOM-FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM-FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Have you bought into the idea that you have to work hard for your money, that business is hard? I will share some dynamic access consciousness tools to get you out of your own way so you can create a business that actually succeeds. Join me, Simone Millisers, on The Joy of Business at 4 p.m. Mondays Eastern.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
Welcome back, everybody, if I could get myself off mute. This is Pam Hodling and Marilyn Bradford, and we are the Irreverent Therapists. And today we are talking about, is divorce a dirty word in your universe? And so right before the break, we were talking about kind of some different possibilities with relationship and divorce.
So I had a thought during the break.
Uh-huh.
Which is, it's interesting how for most people divorce is a dirty word, and yet to be in relationship, they divorce themselves almost completely.
Oh, Marilyn, please say more about that. What do you mean?
What do I mean by that? Let's see. Well, if you're doing relationship paint by numbers or by structure, and you're doing either the male or the female role. It works in both of them. But let's just take the female role, mother, stay-at-home mom, or even you're the one who does the housework, or you're the one who's consistent with this or that. And that goes against who you are. Or if your husband, and it works both ways again, wants you to be someone you're not, like I'm going to do a generalization here, but be really interested in football, or be nice to his idiot cousin, or whatever it is, and you choose to do that, even if it goes against everything that you are, you're divorcing you. And most people divorce enormous amounts of themselves in order to stay in a marriage and not get divorced.
Yeah.
So I just thought I'd bring up that cheery little topic.
Well, I mean, what it makes me think of is there's so many ways we divorce ourselves.
Yes.
So in this case, divorce is a dirty word.
Right. When it comes to divorcing you, it's a dirty word. When it comes to being okay with divorcing when a marriage isn't working out or a friendship isn't working out or whatever, it's not a dirty word. And those are my judgments, and I'm sticking to them. Maybe they're awarenesses.
Yeah. And, this whole thing of when you're able to come out of judgment about whatever's going on, whether it's your marriage is ending and, being able to not go into judgment about you or about your spouse, about marriage and the fact that your marriage is ending, whether it's that or, as we talked about at the beginning, any sort of big long-term, I'll call it a project in your life, marriage as a project. It's being able to not be in judgment of it. It allows you to show up as you to not cut yourself off, you to be fully present, to engage with whatever is occurring, whatever's showing up, and be able to make choices with the awareness of what is this creating, not reacting to whatever's going on.
Right. And I think there's another thing that we should talk about divorce, which is that a lot of times there's pressure from other couples and people not to get divorced.
Yes.
Because if you get divorced, it might force them to look at their marriage and even have that as a possibility, and they don't want to go there.
Yes. Yes.
It's very interesting. When I left Austin after all these years, I was here for over 30 years. People were like, how can you leave Austin? And I finally realized there was an element of, if you are leaving to go somewhere else, not because I got a new job or anything like that, but because I really
because you want to.
I desired to, yes. Then maybe there's something not so super wonderful about Austin that they would have to look at. It's like, I've said to about 8 people, look, it's just choice.
Yeah.
If you love Austin, wonderful. It's not a problem. But this one fellow almost, I wouldn't say he got into a fight with me, but he got so defensive. I love Austin. I'm like, okay, that's great. Good. Enjoy it, please.
Glad to hear it since you live here.
Exactly. That's a good thing. But I think that anytime you leave something that other people have decided they're committed to, but perhaps haven't really looked at for the past 12 years.
Yeah.
It brings up, often kind of threatening to them.
Well, I mean, if you think about it on different shows, we've talked a lot about people on autopilot, right? Yes. And when you're on autopilot, you're just kind of doing same old, you're doing your life, but you're not really being present. You're not asking questions. You're not choosing. You're not aware of choice creates and that your choices are creating what your life is and, all that stuff. And I think, when you make a choice, when you choose something that doesn't fit with how things usually go, usually people's marriages, there's a problem, it's broken, and then they get divorced. So if you're divorcing just because you choose to, which would be my case, or just because it's not working, which would be your case, if you choose to leave Austin just because you choose to, I think it forces people to come off autopilot.
Yes.
At least for a moment, and that they can really resent that.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's really with anything that you do that stirs the pot or brings into question the status quo.
Yeah.
People who move out of America or people who change jobs, all of a sudden leave a, quote, perfectly great job where you're making good money and you have benefits. And how could you do that to go off and become a gardener or a whatever? Yeah,
I know someone who was a very successful lawyer and quit it to be an actor.
How does it get better than that?
Getting better than that. So I'm really intrigued, Marilyn, by this whole thing of it's okay to change when something's wrong, but it's not okay to change just to change.
Or just to choose.
Just to choose. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how much does that have to do with this reality's emphasis on reason, justification, and causal, well, here's an access term, causal incarcerations and incarnations and incongruities. In other words, everything has to have a cause. A reason, or it's not valid. Ooh, could we clear that, please?
Let's clear that. So everything that brought up, can we destroy and uncreate it times a godzillion?
Yes.
Right and wrong, good and bad, pod, poc, all nine shorts, boys, and beyonds. And that was the access clearing statement. Let me just say. That was the access clearing statement. You can find out more about it at theclearingstatement.com.
I wonder how many people actually create the trauma drama in order to have a divorce. Or go out and have an affair in order to have a divorce. Or get fired from their job as a reason.
Yes. Well, I mean, I can actually speak to that because, Marilyn and I, we go to these access classes and you do a tremendous amount of change, I would say. That's an understatement when you go to an access class. And I can remember in one of the classes, I suddenly realized that because the facilitator, Dr. Dane here, he's like, you can call me if stuff comes up. And so I realized that I felt like I had to have a problem to be able to call him. And I brought that up and he was like, oh, well, what if you just have an awareness that us talking would create something greater?
Yes.
And it was like, oh, how much do we create problems because we've decided there has to be a problem before we can contact the person who we look to for facilitation or get the divorce or quit the job or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So everything that is actually, let's destroy and uncreate it times a godzillion.
Please.
Right and wrong, good and bad, pod, poc, all nine shorts, boys, and beyonds. So what if you don't actually have to have a problem to choose and to choose different than you have been choosing?
I like it.
I like it. It's a much more fun way to go about life.
It's a much more fun way to be, absolutely.
Well, and from that, and that's where you can make possible, even though, my family built this business, it actually doesn't work for me and I'm done. And dissolve the business rather than the point of view of, oh, this is the family heritage and I need to preserve this for my kids so they can take over from me, whether they want this or not.
They would or not. We'll all be doing a job we hate, but at least we'll be preserving the family heritage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and it's so much to me, it's so much about all of the emphasis in this reality on not being who you are.
Yeah.
And not, you should put everything ahead of you. You should put family ahead of you. You should put country ahead of you. You should put religion ahead of you. No wonder people do things like put alcohol and drugs and gambling ahead of them.
Right.
We're taught to put something ahead of you. Anything but you.
Yeah, and actually, this is like a whole nother conversation we can have. And this is, to me, actually referring to what you talked about earlier of divorcing you, because it's like we're taught that to actually know what works for you and choose it is wrong.
Yes.
Whereas,
you become a loose cannon, uncontrollable.
Yep.
A wild card. And people don't desire that. And that, in a way, is what divorce is about, too, because it's about, wait a minute, what are you talking about? We had you set for life. You were done. Now all of a sudden you're leaving the town and you're starting a new career and what's that?
You're leaving the box I put you in.
Leaving the box and you're disrupting my world. I think a lot of the judgment about people who create change, whether it's divorce or leaving or whatever, is don't disrupt my world. It's very self-oriented.
Yeah. What that makes me think of is, because we're talking about a different way of being in relationship, a different way of leaving relationship, a different way of approaching the endings of things. And so, like we've talked about, people are looking for the reason, they're looking for what's wrong. So a wonderful tool is, this doesn't work for me. This isn't working for me.
Yes.
It wasn't working for me.
Right.
Which is, as you can see, like, if it's like, well, he was always doing X, Y, Z, and I could, when you go into the reasons and justifications, it gives people that place to judge you from and to try to talk you out of it, or to, all these things. And there's no argument with, this doesn't work for me.
Yes. Yes. They can't say, well, can't you just go to therapy, or can't you work out your issues, or there's no issue.
I don't have any issues.
No.
Anyway, we're
about to go to
a break. So, if you would like to contact Marilyn and I, you can do that through our website, theirreverenttherapist.com, or through our Facebook page. Just go to Facebook and search on The Irreverent Therapist. And we will be back in just a moment more on Is Divorce a Dirty Word in Your Universe?
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
What if living didn't have to be so serious?
What if you could move beyond your problems with greater confidence and ease than you've ever imagined?
Throw your labels out the window and join the Irreverent Therapists for practical tips and a very different way of approaching the changes you would like to create.
Marilyn Bradford
and Pam Hodling
have empowered hundreds of people to come out of self-judgment, quit looking to experts, and begin to create the lives they desire.
Join us Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on the Irreverent Therapist Show.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Looking for inspiration?
Want to be inspired?
Not sure where to go?
Find Mark and Kim every Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern on Inspired Living.
Topics will elevate consciousness and range from metaphysics to the human and social experience in all things spiritual.
Welcome to an inspired community that offers support, encouragement, and new ways of thinking. You are the inspired and the inspiration.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Irreverent Therapist for our last segment on Is Divorce a Dirty Word in Your Universe? So, Marilyn.
I thought of an obvious thing.
What's that?
I thought of an obvious thing. What if we have everyone destroy and uncreate all the points of view they have about divorce?
You're brilliant. Go for it. Tell them what that means.
Yes. What that means is that we have points of view about views. Is that right? Points of view about things. All right, never mind the English here.
Just keep going.
Just keep going. You could have decided at some point or been told, been made to believe that religion was a terrible thing or that skiing was horrible and dangerous and nobody should ever do it. Let's just take skiing because that's an easy one. And so what that means is you can't ever go skiing because your point of view creates your reality, a wonderful access awareness tool, so that you have to think it's a horrible, dangerous thing, and you will create that. Mm-hmm. If you've bought the point of view that divorce, it means failure or that it's a bad, terrible thing, then you've taken it out of the possibility of choosing it ever. Or if you do choose it, if you get into horrible fights and your husband is hitting you with frying pans and cheating on everyone, okay, Marilyn, start again. Cheating with everyone in the neighborhood. Then no matter what, you either have to put up with the abuse or you have to judge yourself as a terrible, bad, horrible failure. So what I'm asking you to do is to destroy and uncreate, which is an access thing, which means to be willing to let go of every point of view you have about divorce. If you're willing to do that, then you can have awareness and you can begin asking questions. This is not about telling you how you should feel about divorce. It's allowing you to let go of everything you've already decided that prevents you from having choice. How's that, Pam?
That's brilliant. Yeah, because the way I think of it is it clears the baggage.
Yes.
So that you can be here now with what is, not reacting from everything that you've thought this should be or it is or it was or it could be and all that kind of stuff. And that makes me think of another tool, which is destroying and uncreating your relationship.
Okay, but let's do the divorce one first.
Oh, okay.
So would you all please destroy and uncreate all the projections, expectations, rejections, separation, judgments, conclusions you have about divorce?
Yes.
Thank you. Right, wrong, good, bad, POC, POD, only shorts, boys, and beyonds. So go for it, Pam, the relationship.
Yeah, I was just going to say another tool is destroying and uncreating your relationship with things. So you could destroy and uncreate your relationship with your partner, with marriage, with divorce, with, and what that is another way of basically clearing all the baggage, all the points of view, all the expectations that you're coming into this with, so that you're starting with a clean slate. And some friends of ours have a wonderful story where, the woman started going to access classes and she came home and she's like, for our anniversary, I want to destroy and uncreate our relationship. And her husband's like, what? You want a divorce? And she's like, no, it's a tool. It's you destroy and uncreate your relationship. And then, each day it's that choice to be together. Yeah. So,
well, and the funny thing is, destroying and uncreating your relationship every day with your partner, with your business, can actually clear the way to not having to get a divorce or leave the business. Yeah. Because so much of what creates the need to end is a stuckness that people get into and don't know how to get out of.
Yeah. Well, and this makes me want to talk about being vested in the outcome of things. So you can use all these tools we're talking about, and if it's like, okay, I'm going to use these so I have a really good relationship to make sure we stay together. Right. That's not going to work so well because you've already decided that actually what's going to create the greatest thing for everyone involved is for you to make your relationship work. Whereas if it's, if you're truly destroying and uncreating your relationship and clearing your points of view about divorce and relationship and everything, it's like you're willing to be aware of whatever is going to create greater. Yes. For me, for 6 years, I had been asking questions about my marriage ever since I got introduced to Access. And it always, I was finding my way to things that made things work better and better. And then one day it was like, now what's light is to separate. Yeah. Cool. Because I wasn't vested in it working or not working.
Yeah. So what you're really talking about there, I do believe, is actually having true choice, which most people don't have because they've so limited what's possible with their points of view.
Yeah.
And their investment, it's investment in the outcome. It's also investment in a belief system, I think. Like the fellow who decided Austin was the best place in the world to live. And when I'm like, I'm moving because I'd rather live somewhere else, got freaked out about it.
Well, and if you just take that point of view he had, you know, just for him, Austin is the best place in the world to live. There's no room there for that to change.
Right.
For him to say, Austin has been the best place in the world to live for 20 years, and now I'm aware something else is possible.
Yeah. Yeah. It almost, I think people feel like they're betraying something, or they're, you know, you're considered flighty or something like that. It's very strange.
Oh my gosh. I'm having an aha.
Married for 50 years is a really good thing, even if the marriage was horribly abusive and both people were miserable.
Yep.
Everything that brings up, can we destroy it and create it times a godzillion?
Yes.
Right, wrong, good, bad, POC, punchline, short sports. Yes, I remember when I started therapy, and my therapist asked if I had any long-term friends. And I did at the time. I said, yeah, I've known these people for like 20-some years. He's like, oh, that's good. You know, that shows good mental stability. And later I thought about it, and I went, it just shows that nobody's changed.
Yeah.
Nobody's done anything different.
So, Marilyn, I have a little relationship thing that we could actually show people this in action. Because when you were talking about loyalty, I realized I've had the same person cutting my hair for probably 14 years, maybe 15 years, and I feel very loyal to this hairstylist.
I know her.
In the last 6 months, out of 6 haircuts, 4 have been terrible, and one was awesome and one was okay. And it's like I almost can't conceive of going to a different hairstylist because I feel like I would be betraying that loyalty.
Would you like to destroy and uncreate that and consider divorcing your hairstylist?
I would.
Thank you. Right, wrong, good, bad, POC, POD, online, short, sports, and beyonds. There you have it, folks, on the air. A divorce in process.
A divorce in process. But, you know, it's like, and it might seem silly, but this is exactly what we do with any relationship, especially marriage, is it's like you've got the history. You don't want to let them down. You don't want to hurt their feelings.
Yes. You know? Hey, by the way, I have a good recommendation. I finally found a hairdresser in Santa Fe I like.
I think I need that recommendation. I'm searching for a new relationship.
Searching for a new relationship with your hairdresser. I love it. But I think that's a standing point. I mean, you hear people, well, I've been going to the same butcher or the same pub and bar for 30 years, or as if that's a great thing in and of itself. Longevity is not a great thing in and of itself.
Well, and it's so funny. I'm just sitting here laughing at myself because so many things we've been talking about it on the show. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm doing that with my hairstylist. It's like, I keep waiting for the haircut to be so bad that I can finally say, this is it. I'm done. I'm leaving.
That'd be a terrible haircut. How could you ruin my hair? I'll never speak to you again.
Which would be creating the problem.
So that you can and the trauma drama.
And the trauma drama, so you can finally end the relationship. And how much easier would it be to, you know, because I have the awareness of like, this isn't working anymore for me. But I haven't acted on that, haven't chosen something different.
Well, I think, too, that people are, and we pick it up from everyone else, essentially afraid of change. Mm-hmm. What if you find someone who's worse, which is what happened to me, or I created. The first 4 hairdressers I tried were not good. But I kept going, never quit, never give in, until I found one I really did like.
Yeah.
But I think that's a big issue too, Pam, is that we're programmed to think that change is bad. Or, you know, what's known, even if it's not great, is better than what's unknown.
Well, and I'm so glad, I mean, in a way it seems like a silly little example of the hairstylist, but it's like, you know, we talked about bigger things in life that come to an end, and if you're willing to just be willing to go, it's not working, time to change things with no judgment,
Yes.
you know. And now here's an example of the ways in which, in little ways, we do the very same thing. Is it a big impact on my life? Who cuts my hair? No. But if I'm letting the points of view about letting her down, hurting her feelings, it has to be really bad before I leave, all of that is a limitation.
Absolutely.
So pod and pock that.
Pod and pock that. Okay, folks. Well, we are just about out of time.
Just about done. So we just realized during this show, we were like texting back and forth that we are not going to be on live next week because we are going to a social work conference. So we will have a replay next week, which now I've forgotten what it was. I think it was What Does Change
mean to you?
So next week it'll be a replay of What Does Change Mean to You, and the week after we'll be back live with These Are a Few of My Favorite Tools. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.